It becomes a thing for Lucifer where he's like, okay, kind of on his best behaviour almost, until Dan gives him good reason to call him douche again, which he does, by the way, later in the series. But yeah, it's nice because again, it's like you want these dynamics between these characters to be continually evolving and changing. If it was locked into the same thing every week, it would get a little bit boring. And so, as part of kind of Lucifer's humanisation, you know, it's another kind of layer stripped away when he has this sort of realisation with Dan that Dan is someone who has his struggles in life and he isn't this perfect nice guy, and fundamentally everyone is flawed, and for that to be pointed out to Lucifer and for him to get a grasp of that situation really helps thaw that relationship. I mean, a lot of it came basically because we've been working together so much anyway, and we've become accustomed to one another. And I think, you know, generally as a cast, there's a shared sense of humour amongst all of us, so we're always kind of like taking the mickey out of each other and having a laugh and stuff. So it was funny. I remember Kevin coming to my trailer going, so apparently I've got to be you in the next episode. So I went through it with him and did my lines for him on his iPhone. And then with the Dan stuff, and the nice thing for me was that a lot of it was happening during the scenes. So it wasn't really about prepping, it was about being observant in the scenes and trying to not be flippant or glib about it, trying to make it come from a genuine place for Lucifer, where he believes if he learns to be like this, if he learns Dan's secret, then life will be easier. And so you know, we were having a lot of fun in the scene, me just kind of watching him and then sort of mimicking how he stands, because he's got quite a particular stance, his old douchey. And it sort of started from there and grew, and then it was partly in the writing and partly what we sort of took from that and what it is it's slowly thawing, I think would be the best way of putting it. I mean, you know, until that episode, I don't think Lucifer had ever put himself in Dan's shoes. And I don't mean like, you know, metaphorically, it never ever. And it's not like Lucifer to do that, to empathise, to think from someone else's point of view. Certainly with Dan, you know, he'd made his mind up about him, and that was his point of fun. And this person really didn't have an awful lot of validity in Lucifer's eyes. But through that episode, Lucifer gets to experience the reality of Dan and Dan's life. And I think that it lands on him a little bit. And then he spends the next episode trying desperately not to call him douche, but it's kind of like almost like a reflex action for him. I think the immediate sort of fallout of it is that Lucifer, being Lucifer, goes back to therapy with Linda, assuming it would be all right to not talk about the elephant in the room. And of course, you know, that doesn't work out, and he realises that this revelation to Linda has sort of, you know, created this kind of babbling lunatic, basically. And he finds himself in that particular episode you're referring to becoming the therapist almost, and she becomes the person in therapy, and it's quite a fun sort of thing that we have with that. But later down the road in the series, I wouldn't say it's a regret, but I think there are consequences to all these actions. And someone human having that power and that knowledge can certainly have very differing effects. I think he made this choice, he made this jump because, as Linda always says, you know, patient-doctor confidentiality is at the heart of everything. And it's not like, you know, he's going to her and he's telling her he's killed someone, but he's telling her he's killed another angel, basically, so it's kind of inconsequential in human circumstances. But I think he believes that he can trust that information with Linda and it won't go any further, but I don't think he really has thought through what the repercussions are for her personally about that revelation. Again, like all things with Lucifer, it comes from a very selfish point of view. It becomes this thing of, it's kind of, Lucifer didn't think this through, but it becomes almost inconvenient for him that his therapist now wants to talk about other things other than him. So, you know, that all aside, he still wants to go to therapy and find out what's going on with everything, and her sort of going off in her own thing is very, very sort of annoying for Lucifer. You know, it's something again. You know, he didn't think it through. He didn't think it through at all. So what comes with it is inconvenient, and then we make a progression, but you can't make that much progression when someone knows you're the actual devil.
So we saw Uriel come down to try to enforce the deal that Lucifer made. Is God going to do anything else? Are you going to have to do any more maneuvering to make sure that you can keep control of the situation?
Well, I mean, a big part of our season this year is about that. It's about what God has in store, or what God has put in the path of Lucifer, so it's maybe not so specifically about that particular deal or whatever, but it's more about Lucifer getting his head around. It's a power struggle. Lucifer wants to take that power away from his dad, and ultimately the question is, can he? Is that possible, or is this person, this omniscient being that everyone believes, is there? Are they in control of everything? Even when the people who think that they've taken the control back, they think that, but is that really what's happening? It's a big kind of it's this whole sort of, the big aspects of religion and stuff like that is how much of it is our choice, and how much of it is all predetermined and predestined and all of that. So we touch on that.
Is that going to make him more reticent to share who he is a bit more with other people like Ella? Because he'll realize there's repercussions?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had it from the start that Lucifer has been very open with people about who he is. Yes, he's never shown anyone unless, it's in a moment of punishment towards someone and he wants to kind of freak them out. I don't think he has any kind of immediate inclinations to let anyone else know or show anyone else that, because rather than just showing a scary face to someone, I like to think of it as a much more exposing moment than that. I mean, that's him in his most vulnerable state. And what I loved about that scene with Linda is that when Lucifer does it, it doesn't come out of a ferocious place. It doesn't come out of him trying to be threatening or domineering or anything like that. It just comes out of him going, "This is me." And actually, there's a real sadness to that, because he wishes he wasn't that person. And perceived as that person. I often think or draw parallels when we're doing moments like this within the show. It reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, and there is what's at the heart of that story, I find, is very much at the heart of this story. Is that someone who doesn't want to be judged for the way that they are, look, and people think they are, and actually under it all there's a soul, and there's someone who's capable of things, but they've been held back from the title that they've owned, basically.